All right, now we're going to talk about the digestive system, but first we need to talk about general body organization, the levels of organization. And so, as you know, all living things are made of cells. That's the bare minimum. But in a complex organism like a person, the cells are organized into tissues, so clusters of cells that have a particular function, like muscle tissue. And then you have tissues organized into organs, like the heart. So those different tissues are working together for a particular job. The heart has muscular tissue, it has nervous tissue, it has connective tissue, and those all get together to form this organ we know as the heart. And then when you have different organs um, working together for a particular job, like the circulatory system, as we see here in our soccer player, um, you've got the heart and all the arteries and veins that move blood around. Um, and then when you take various organ systems and put them together, you have an organism. So it goes from cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and organism. We'll look at all the different organ systems in a little while. All right, so what are the different types of tissues that we have in an animal like us? Um, well, first you've got epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue is our skin, the surface of the body, and as we'll see, it also includes the lining of tubes and passageways that are connected to the outside of your body. So the layer of cells in your lungs that is connected to the outside is epithelial tissue. Your digestive system has epithelial tissue lining it. So it's the coverings and anything on your inside that's connected to the outside. All right, muscle tissue. Muscle tissue found throughout the body. Of course, its job is to provide for movement, and as we'll see, to move things through your digestive tract, for example. There's three kinds of muscle tissue we'll look at. Nervous tissue, so all these neurons that are connected into these networks that allow us to receive input and then respond. Um, so when you touch something hot, that you have nerve endings in your finger that can sense that heat, send that signal quickly to your central nervous system, and then your body decides to pull your hand away. And it's something in that case that you don't have to think about it because it works so fast. Um, as we'll see later, your nervous system, there's an involuntary and voluntary ways you can use it. All right, connective tissue. Connective tissue includes a wide variety of things that, as you can imagine, connects things together, like ligaments and tendons. Um, it also includes fat, which is part of the loose connective tissue, or fat is sometimes known as adipose tissue, provides insulation and padding. Um, it includes bone, uh, cartilage, which is the material that's between your bones at your joints. So it's not quite ligaments and tendons. You'll recall that, or maybe you'll recall that ligaments are what hold joints together, like the ACL. You may have heard the ACL, the anterior cruciate ligament. And tendons, it's connective tissue that holds muscles to the bones. Um, Cartilage is the material, again, between your bones. The joints provides padding, so the bones don't rub together. Blood is also considered part of the connective tissue. That might seem a little odd because it doesn't really hold things together, but the blood is produced in your bone marrow, so it's produced by a type of connective tissue, so it's therefore considered connective tissue as well. All right, let's look at these in a little more detail. Epithelial tissue, again, these are tissues that cover your body, your skin, and the linings of passageways connected to the outside of your body. The cells of epithelial tissue come in various shapes and sizes. Some are very flattened cells, some are cube-shaped, and some are shaped like rectangular columns. Um, In your skin, for example, you have a bunch of these what are called squamous cells. However, your skin is not simple. Simple squamous is just where there's a single layer, um, and you'll see something like that in the inside of your lungs. But the your skin is multiple layers of these flattened cells that form a very thick barrier to the outside world. Um, the cuboidal and columnar cells are found in those passageways inside your body. They're cells in your stomach and in your intestine, and their job is to often provide for secretion of materials into your stomach, digestive enzymes, for example, in your stomach, in your intestine, um, and absorption. So they basically provide for exchange of materials, say, again, releasing digestive enzymes and then absorbing nutrients and such. Um, this basement membrane, that's just some connective tissue that holds your epithelial tissues, say, to the muscles below them, for example. All right, muscles. So muscles provide for movement, and there's three types. You have skeletal, smooth, and cardiac. As you can imagine, cardiac muscle is what you find in your heart. Skeletal muscle is the muscle that is connected to your bones, and it provides for those largely voluntary movements that we have when we decide to pick up a pen or something like that. Cardiac muscle is involuntary. You don't have to think about that. Your heart just keeps on beating away. Smooth muscle is muscle that surrounds your digestive system, your esophagus, your stomach, your large and small intestine. And it's muscle that basically squeezes that passageway, those tubes, and keeps food moving along. It is also, as you can imagine, involuntary as well. You don't have to think about it. All right, nervous tissue. So, um, here's your basic unit of the nervous system, a neuron. And neurons are connected one to the other. This is supposed to be a very simple neuron. So they form these networks. And the basics of a neuron are you have the bulk of it is what's called the cell body, where the nucleus is. And there are dendrites coming off of it that connect it to other neurons. Then you have this long, thin part called the axon. And at the end of it, it has branchings that form the axon terminals, which connect to other neurons. Um, the axon is surrounded by this thing called the myelin sheath, which you can think of as equivalent to in a wire, an electric wire, we have plastic or rubber material that surrounds it, that insulates it, that keeps the electricity on the inside and keeps you from getting shocked. And so the myelin sheath is somewhat the same way because a nerve impulse is basically an electrochemical event. A charge is sent down the axon, and the myelin sheath sort of keeps it contained, if you will, in the axon. Um, and so one thing about neurons is they operate in one direction only. That is, the impulse starts up at the end where the dendrites in the cell body are, and it gets sent to the axon terminals, where it will be transmitted to the next neuron. So indeed, the signal is just sent from one neuron to the next in one direction. And so let's use this arm that is conveniently down here. You'll have neurons running down the arm and back. And so again, when you touch something or you get pricked by something, there's a signal that's sent to your central nervous system, basically your brain and spinal column, through one set of neurons. And then you have another set of neurons that sends out the response, telling your finger essentially to pull away from the thing that has caused the pain. All right, now let's see. So, I already talked about connective tissue up above, so here it is again. Again, that connective tissue ligaments, tendons, fat, or adipose tissue, bone, cartilage, and blood. All right, so you take these tissues, you put them into organs, and from them you get various organ systems. All right, and so the book gives us an exhaustive list of all these organ systems, and you can see here what they are and what they do. And so we already talked about the nervous system a little bit, but you also have the integumentary system, that's your skin, and a few other things that are connected to the skin, and glands that are within the skin that excrete outside your body. The immune system, unfortunately, we won't be able to talk about that much this year, but of course, it's what you use to fight off pathogens, um, consisting of your white blood cells and some of these glands that secrete or process white blood cells. Um, and the lymphatic system, this is one I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's sort of a counterpart to the circulatory system in that it has a fluid called lymph that runs in it. And it is often populated by white blood cells because the lymphatic system basically, as well as your circulatory system, can take these white blood cells around the body to fight off pathogens. And as maybe you've experienced, you can have lymph nodes that swell up when you have an infection. That's because there's a proliferation of white blood cells in that particular node that's fighting off an infection there. All right, the muscular system, circulatory system, again with the heart at the center of it and all those arteries and veins that's moving blood throughout your body. Skeletal system, we'll learn about that in some detail. We'll have to learn some of the bones. You can see includes the cartilage, ligaments, and tendons that are there associated with your skeletal system, that connective tissue. Respiratory system, we're going to learn a bit about that. Basically your lungs for the most part, and then the passageways that you use to move air in and out of your body. Your digestive system, we're going to learn about that in significant detail. Excretory system, not so much, but this is the system that gets rid of wastes from your body. So you can see the kidneys that clean out the blood, and your bladder where you store urine and then excrete it from your body. Now you'll notice the lungs are here. You may not think of them as part of the excretory system, but essentially you use the lungs to not only bring fresh air in, but to get rid of that waste air, that CO2 that you don't need anymore. So you're, in essence, excreting that from your body. Endocrine system, we won't talk about this too much, but that's all these glands you have in your body that secrete hormones, that control various body processes. And then the reproductive systems in both males and females, of course. And so those are the different systems. Now, the last thing in this section is homeostasis, and we learned about this, I believe, way at the beginning of the school year when we were studying what it means to be alive, and in particular when we were studying metabolism and how that's the sum total of reactions happening inside your body. And you use your metabolism to maintain homeostasis, and you may recall that homeostasis is when you maintain sort of constant conditions in your body, whether it's your temperature or your blood sugar levels or the pH of your blood. Many of these systems, like your endocrine system, for example, or your excretory system, are very important in maintaining homeostasis. One thing that's important with homeostasis is what's called feedback, or in particular negative feedback. This is when your body, if your body temperature is starting to increase, you use negative feedback. You negate that trend. You start sweating to bring your temperature back down to the desired temperature. You don't let it get too low, you'll start shivering, or too high, you'll start sweating. You always want to maintain your body temperature. And so again, we use feedback inhibition, or essentially negative feedback, to keep that trend from continuing, because you don't want your temperature to just get higher and higher. All right, so that's it for this section.